Hello everyone. Today we have Maja Schreiner in the Women IT Pros podcast. So, welcome, Maja. Maja is actually from Serbia and she now lives in Switzerland, which is similar like me. So, happy to have you today with us. So, you had, let's say, beginning of your life in Serbia, finished the studies there, studied IT, then moved over to Switzerland, and your career was really, really interesting. When we were preparing this call, we were so thrilled to listen to you about so many different aspects, and especially because you started in the IT role, very technical role, then switched over to some more interesting ones. So, being today even the CEO of your own company, Sharing Tribes. So, definitely happy to have you here. And just to kick it off, would be great to hear about maybe the top three key moments. If you can do that for us, just where do you see yourself in these three key moments in the career, and also how this impacted you?
Thank you so much, Nina and Carolina, for having me. It's a real pleasure. Yes, so regarding this first question, so my actually very first key moment was many years ago when I moved to Switzerland, when I arrived and when I started working for, if you can imagine at that time, a startup. So that was when I realized how this team, and that was a small startup team, is still very diverse and multicultural. Because before that, you can imagine, while living in Serbia, I was used to studying, to working as well in a very similar environment. We were all very similar, and when I mean that was also regarding the mindset. So it was really eye-opening to share the lunch table, to share all these work tasks, the conversations with people from all these different cultures, with people from Australia, United Kingdom, Ireland, India, Vietnam, China, and Switzerland, of course. So that was like, suddenly it wasn't only about work, right? It was about completely going out of your comfort zone, finding yourself, adapting yourself to completely new environment and to new way of thinking and way of working. So I embraced that. I loved this first moments. Everything was so fresh and exciting, and it definitely gave me more energy to stay, of course, and to keep working on my career. Then the second key moment was actually after going back to work, after my second daughter was only 6 months old. And at that moment, I went back to work, not in a full-time position, but in a part-time position with 60% workload, meaning 3 days a week, in the company where I worked before. That was actually logical, and I anticipated that I would lose one or the other very strategic project, because our clients wanted to have somebody who works full-time and who is always available, right? Still, I didn't expect that I would have to honestly go a few steps back in my career, because before that I was a senior software developer and a technical project manager, and suddenly I was only a developer on a part-time project, maintaining some legacy code. So that part was not that interested. Still, I again embraced this occasion and started exploring more. I explored the software. I organized calls with our end users. I learned so much from them, and I also realized that a role on the interface between business and IT is where my heart skips, right? And where my passion lies, and where I really want to further advance and further develop. So actually, at that moment, I reinvented my career for the very first time. It was not easy. It took some as I said, exploration and also some further education as well, and a lot of talks with customers and with the current team at that moment. But I actually also managed to achieve a work-life balance with that, because while working as a software test manager and quality assurance specialist, I was able to fulfill my two main roles of being a mom and dedicated mom, and also being a specialist in what I do. And the third key moment was definitely this pandemic, right? The COVID pandemic and the very first lockdown, if you both remember, and are the people who will listen to this podcast, it was middle of March in Switzerland. In some countries, it was a bit before or later. So suddenly I was sitting at home in home office with my husband, also IT person, and with two kids who were supposed to be homeschooled. So 4 of us, 7/24, right? It was very tough. And actually, I was coining with the idea to start my own business for years before. Still, I was cushioned while working for a corporation. I was maybe not that clear about one or the other idea or how to do that. But then when COVID started, I first decided to do a short break to really focus only on myself, on my mental health, on my self-care, and on my family, of course. And then after that short break, or during that break, I realized now I'm doing it. Now I'm finally starting my own business, actually my own startup, because that was also the time when I realized I don't want to be a consulting company or a coach, right? Only a coach, but I really want to build a product. And this is, I mean, you can imagine between all these times, between second or third key moment, I also tiny bit changed my career towards product management and business development. So that was definitely the main moment so far at the end of the day. And I actually built up on my former experiences with running, initiating, building some other communities. And I realized that I want to do something with more purpose that will also improve the lives of others, and not only my life when I do a job like 9 to 5 and I have my salary, right, or life of my family, but really do something with a social impact. And then I also came back to this main idea of job sharing platform that I had even before COVID, but then I had more time during the lockdown to explore on that. I went to one of the startup incubators, and I also decided that is it, right? I will create this platform that helps companies improve their diversity goals, and that also helps them unlock this untapped potential. And that also helps, of course, talents, and especially people who are not in the workforce, to have a really meaningful and relevant career while working part-time and job share.
Thank you. That's really interesting. And throughout these 3 key moments in your life, adaptability is the key word, I think. And even in our previous conversation, you mentioned how important being adaptable is in today's workforce. So just keen to understand, what's your view on adaptability? Why is it so important in today's world? And how can someone who is not that adaptable can work towards being someone adaptable?
Yes, that is really a great question. So as many of you know, we live in this so-called VUCA world, right? VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that is still more than this buzzword. It is really a way of thinking and how you approach solutions, how you solve problems. So this increase in all this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity also means that you need for yourself to look for new opportunities and new orientations. So not only businesses itself or companies should look for new orientation and at the end new business models, but every one of us should explore what are the opportunities for not only present but also for future, and adapt, right? So again, if we're talking about business, the management or the leaders need to have this fresh approach, right? And if we are talking about talents, you can be adaptable, or you can become adaptable if you are open and curious, if you want to learn, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to connect to other people, to learn from them, and if you're also willing to share your knowledge, right? And I might be a bit biased because I anyway come from this whole agile world where actually inspect and adapt is the main mantra, so to say, right? So you inspect what is going on, what your results were, what is the environment, what is your competition at the end, and then you adapt to that, right? Of course, it takes some strategy, it takes some thinking, it takes some techniques. So I also believe that people who are more adaptable should act as leaders and coaches, and so to say, thought experts on placing this, so to say, adaptability seed in their enterprise or in their environment, and really also act as motivators for others who might need longer, right? I, at the end of the day, also notice a difference in cultures, right? As mentioned, I come from Serbia. So Nina also knows very well what does it mean to be adaptable when you live in Balkans, or if you are a refugee from Syria or Afghanistan, versus when you grow up and are born in Switzerland, right? So this is what we can maybe discuss a bit later during this call and podcast, is that this whole diversity, right, in thinking, diversity in backgrounds, in being more adaptable, as I say, by default or by circumstances, can be matched to those people who are, let's say, used to do everything a bit traditionally on like this, and then they can be coached and they can definitely learn. And, you know, at the end of the day, they will also have to adapt, because we live in a global world now with COVID, right? Everything is so connected. There is so much competition that you simply have to adapt. Otherwise, at some point, you might lose your job sooner or later.
That's quite interesting. And myself, I don't come from Serbia nor the Balkans, but I come from Portugal. So I do understand a little bit of how important it is to be adaptable, to be able to be part of a new culture and prospect and succeed in that new setting, I guess. And one thing that you mentioned as well in your introduction, and it kind of connects as well with this adaptability topic, is you have been always a big supporter of women in tech, and you have been a big advocate. Even in your previous employer, you led a community within that organization that was focused in women and helping women succeed. So I'm kind of keen to understand how this work and this community kind of inspired you on your growth, but also inspired you to potentially make this change as well.
Yes, I'm glad to, and thank you also for this question. So, well, first, being a woman in a very male-dominated industry like IT is already not that easy. And there are many studies and statistics and many people, especially nowadays, involved to improve the situation, right? Then on top of that, if you're a foreigner to this country, Switzerland, that has 4 official languages, right? And you come from other culture with other main language, so to say, or native language, it is a bit of a drawback. So actually, honestly, I wasn't welcome during my career at some places or at some positions. I didn't get promotions that easy, right? I had really to work not only hard, but to network, to explore, to negotiate, etc., and to really keep going. And on that way, right, through all these years, I met many other women in a similar situation. And I, of course, connected to them. With many of them, I'm a friend in a private life. And although, by the way, there is at the end, it is so blurred in the meantime, private and business, but that's some other topic. So, and I really learned from them, and they learned a lot from me. So when I joined Swisscom in 2014, I was again more or less the only woman on the team. And actually that story kept repeating through all of my career. And I knew there are few other women, right? I just had to find them. And after I found them, after I met them, I realized this is not enough, right? It's not enough if three of us go for a coffee break or a lunch break. There is a huge potential in this company to really move some things, right? To shake them up. And this is why I initiated this. At that moment, it was called Women in Tech and Lead, because I first wanted to focus on women in tech roles, but also women in leadership roles, where there is even less women, right? So I was helped with some of those colleagues and volunteers, and I just took things in my own hands and built it bottom up, right? This community was really based on a very large, so to say, very important vision of world where gender and diversity is not existent. And where gender diversity issues are not existent. And I think that we really were able, through all these events that we organized, that I initiated, we had like monthly lunches, once in Bern, once in Zurich, or even in parallel, because they were the main two locations at Swisscom at that moment. And we had monthly lunches, like networking lunches. We have webinars. We had quarterly meetings with other people that inspired us, or we held our talks. I held many talks. Also a good practice to practice public speaking, by the way. So through all this community, where, by the way, also men were invited at the beginning, almost no one wanted to come. Later, they kept coming. And through this whole strong, trusting community, we were able to create some new job opportunities, some new partnerships, some friendships, of course. And at the end, the whole community was recognized as one of the three main diversity levers at the company level, right? It was also appreciated by our executive board, and it was completely embraced by our diversity department. And now it's called, as far as I know, Women Empowerment Community. And it has many hundreds of members. And again, this was also the point where I learned how actually is important to look at the things also from employer perspective, right? Because I was always in employee perspective, and as an employee, you might have your way of how you see things or how you feel them, right? But as an employer, you of course have different point of view, right? You want to have the best talent. You want to have this talent that performs round the clock, etc., etc. And that was what I mainly learned from this community, from running and building it. What are the challenges and what are the lessons on both sides? And this whole inspiration and the knowledge, I, of course, also am now using for Sharing Tribe as well. And Sharing Tribe is really based on a community. It's really a community-driven platform.
So I can't wait to come to the Sharing Tribe part. And thank you so much for sharing already all the great work that you did. I think you should be absolutely proud of yourself. And thanks a lot for, again, sharing with not only us, but everyone who's going to listen to us, because I think these are very important things that not many people are open to talk about. So there's one interesting thing that you mentioned that it caused mixed feelings when I've heard that. It's about the point where you said when you had your second daughter and you got back, and about the job that was not the same or not the one that was expected or that would be normal to go back to. So I just wanted to go back one more time to that in terms of like flexible working or working part-time, and get some thoughts from you there, because like you said, it's different like when we look from the employee perspective or if you're looking from the employer perspective. But we would all agree that at some point they also need to look through our eyes and some of the
Yes.
things. So I'm very curious about your thoughts on how organizations can actually help women in such occasions, what they can do, how they can empower them to still progress in career, even working part-time, and make them, included fully like everyone else.
Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you again for asking that. And it is a sad fact, right? It is a fact that there is this so-called term of motherhood penalty. And when you basically might even lose a job, right? Depending on a company and depending on a country. In Switzerland, as most of us know, maternity leave is very short, like paid maternity leave goes only to, as far as I know, 16 weeks in the meantime. I always say there are, of course, companies that offer, for example, 6 months paid leave, and they are like awesome companies. They are labeled as the best places to work, which might be true. So companies should actually first, and I agree completely with you, Nina, what you're saying, they should also change their way of thinking and look it through the eyes of employees, definitely. And by that, I first mean, it's not only about moms or women, right? It is about partners, husbands, for example, or men, because they also become fathers, right? And then there are so many other genders, right? It's not that simple and like male or female. So as mentioned, as everybody knows, IT or tech is still very male-oriented. I mean, the whole business world is unfortunately very male-oriented. So those men, they also have their wives and kids at home, right? So their mindset also first needs to be changed, and they need to understand that there are women out there who are qualified and willing to continue working even if they're moms, right? And they themselves should also be actually encouraged and motivated to be fathers less than a weekend father, and also understand that there is something, I will say that very frank and honest in this call, much more important than any business or any job, and that is yourself, or in this case, your family, or maybe something else that you are really super passionate about, right? It's not only about work. So when we achieve to have more men who understand that and who are also willing to say, yes, I'm having Friday off or Wednesday off or how many hours off, and I'm really spending more time with my family or with my hobbies, then this society will change, right? Because it is the whole system. And when moms, in this case, have a relevant career, then they're happy and then they're fulfilled. And then their family is also happy, because if you're not fulfilled as a mom or as a woman, then your partner or your family will also suffer and the whole society will suffer. So that is one thing. And back to very main question, what the businesses should do. They really need to have all the structures, right? Obviously, the country or society is not offering that easy childcare or whatever system that is really, really performing, so to say. But the companies should understand from the eyes of employee that it is not important if you have a child or not. It's not important what is your age, right? because at any point of your career, you have different kind of knowledge, different kind of experiences. However, when you match those people, right? When you match people who have business acumen, for example, with people who have technical expertise, and when you match people who are juniors, fresh from college and fresh from university, who learned all these programming languages and have them in their small finger, when you match them to, let's say, people who are 40, 50 plus, but have 20 to 30 years of work experience already, then you have dream teams, right? And that is diversity, independent of age, independent of background, skills, right? I talk a lot about complementary skills. And so companies should really stop looking at their talents or people who apply for a job in terms of, oh, she's 30 or she's 35, maybe she will have a child tomorrow. No, we are not inviting her to the interview. Why not? I mean, even if she does has a child, maybe she continues working full-time, right? Or she reduces to 80%, or maybe she leaves the company. But you should see what does it bring it to you first in the present, and of course also in the future, and then you should see how to keep those people, right? Because even if you think you are offering them a good opportunity, be sure that nowadays the competition is tough on all levels, right? So maybe another company will offer this talent better conditions and projects with more purpose and projects with at the end also more salary, and then they will leave, independent or dependent of flexible workforce or yeah. So again, regarding Sharing Tribe, right? Following all these stories and those connections, I really wanted to give back of all my learnings, right? I always say, if we can every day help at least one person who is, for example, 25, to strategically think about her goals, or at least to learn how to strategically think about them and explore, and to be open and adaptable, and to help them avoid some typical mistakes, then our job is really done, right? And at the end, we also talk about this cultural fit, right? That you can also read everywhere on internet about companies' culture, but also these companies' cultures need to be even more adaptable and open, and say, again, independent if you are 20, 30, or 40 with or without kids, we are embracing you as a talent and as actually asset to our business, and we are investing in this person because this person actually brings us money and creates cool stuff, right?
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of great points that you shared with us, and loyalty of a both like company and employee is very important, and we definitely need to normalize some things, especially around women having a family, having important things in your life. If we just look back in these past 2 years and COVID and well-being, it affected so many people. So we definitely need to normalize some of the things, if not even like sooner, so to make a better place for everyone to work, and having everyone being happy ultimately, and then obviously more productive. And on that journey, there's one thing that can potentially help. It's not that familiar. We talked about it in the preparation call. It's a job sharing. And I must say that when I start talking with you about this for the first time, I only heard the term. It's definitely not something that it's super popular that everybody's doing. So instead of some people guessing what it is, would you be happy just to share with us what it is and how this can potentially help everyone to be better in their job and avoid these hurdles?
Yes, very happy to do that. So actually job sharing is a type of flexible work arrangement in which two people normally work part-time schedules to actually share one full-time position, right? So instead of having one person working full-time, you have, for example, two people working both 50% or 60 plus 60 or 80 plus 40, etc. Job sharing is also super interested for so-called leadership positions, and in that case it's called top sharing, where you actually have not only line management position, but really responsibility over, let's say, 10, 20, 100,000 people in your organization. And to be honest, no one can do it by himself or herself. I mean, okay, you can with your team or executive assistant, but many of those people actually work much more than full-time. And we keep reading about these burnout stories in the news or on LinkedIn or in internet, people switching jobs, thinking that when they switch job, it will be better, but at the end it's not, because they fall back into the same pattern. So actually with top sharing, you actually might have two people working, let's say, full-time or almost full-time, but sharing this leadership position or managerial position. And we have many examples in the media from companies like UBS, Unilever, even Swisscom, many other companies. My favorite example, by the way, is from a couple, obviously, who is sharing their embassy. They work for Swiss embassy in Singapore, and they share their job. So they, for me, they're like idols, because they share private life, obviously, as a couple, a husband and wife, and also a job as well. So what are the benefits? And sorry, just to come back to if it's well known or not. Actually, in the federal government, also in the Swiss government, it's very much well known, right? Not in that case, not necessarily for tech jobs or IT jobs, but really for different kind of jobs. And they do promote this job sharing and some other flexible work arrangements. In the industry or let's say IT, more and more companies are introducing it. And this is where we also say the power of community can work wonders, right? For example, if you two would share your engineering jobs, right, for example, and I share my CEO job with a co-CEO, and by the way, there are examples of that, then we can inspire others to do that, right? We can create a community of people who are interested, who are ambassadors to the cause, who are supporters, or who are also job sharing, right? And then it keeps rolling, right? So when you have one or the other example in a company, they should again act as community builders, so to say. And the main benefits should be actually very logical, right? First, when you work closely with somebody, when you share the same job, then first, not only that you have a deputy for when you are, for example, sick or go on a vacation, but you actually have a sparring partner. You have somebody from whom you learn, who challenges you and reverse. And actually, it is a known fact that together you create much more outcome than if you would be working separately on the same job. For example, if we are both software engineers and we don't work together in a Scrum team and we don't collaborate and we don't even job share, for example, then of course we won't create this outcome as if we would work closely together. What is also very interesting for companies is not only this whole concept of know-how sharing, keeping the knowledge and let's say split it on more than one person, right? And more than a deputy concept. It is also very well instrument to introduce for succession planning, right? Because through your careers, we were talking about being adaptable, being flexible, changing your job at the end. You might change, right? Maybe today you are a software engineer and tomorrow you're a senior software engineer or a software architect or a team lead, right? And then the question is who is going to do that, right? Or you even leave a company. But if you have somebody who really knows this job, right, who shared this role with you, this person can act as a successor. And then you don't need to open a new job and to spend months and thousands of Swiss francs to find this new person and then to onboard, right? There is a statistic that says that actually a cost of one wrong hire is actually the full yearly salary. Yeah. So this is a succession planning. And by the way, I had this example while also job sharing for 3 years while being at Swisscom, where it was so-called intergenerational job sharing, where I was in a senior role as agile lead and test manager. And my apprentice actually was very junior, just fresh from bachelor studies. And then we were working closely together. I was focusing more on strategic tasks. He was more operational. But then we were also sharing the responsibility of working with 4 Scrum teams on all different testing activities, right? And at some point when I left that team, he actually stayed as successor, right? And the statistics also show that even if the job sharing couple might dissolve, not both of people would leave the same company or the same team, right? So this is a very strong instrument that we always educate actually our clients or potential clients on that. And actually there is one more thing, and that is productivity, right? There is a myth that people think if you work full-time or more than full-time, then you're fully productive or efficient. And this myth is completely wrong, because everything more than 70 or 80% of your work, even if you analyze what you do for one day, it's not always productive, right? And it's not always efficient. So imagine you work only 3.5 days a week instead of 5 days, or you work only 5 to 6 hours, which is even better than every day, than working 8 hours a day. And the rest of the time you actually spend re-energizing or refueling yourself, right? So when you do a longer lunch break, or when you're just more productive, right? If you don't have to, if you can say my workload is a bit smaller and I focus completely on that, because I know that the rest of my time, that is not paid, of course, but that rest of my time is focused on the things where I recover, where I spend more time with my family or with my studies or with my hobbies. And there are a lot of statistics. There is this, for example, 2014 Stanford University productivity of working hours. Maybe I can add that later to the podcast chat when it's on YouTube. And yes, so I think again, for companies, very important to know that it is a great instrument to not only attract but also retain talent, and especially the talent that is not that is, let's say, unemployed at the moment and already skilled, right? So
just to close up this the job sharing topic, I'm quite curious to understand how can companies who are a pro job sharing culture promote career development, so that I am not forever an individual contributor, but I can go up in the food chain, let's say career food chain, even if I want to do career job sharing. Because I see a lot of I feel first that the topic is not well understood throughout different businesses, but also I feel working full time is already difficult to go up the food chain. So I can see even more being even more difficult for someone who is job sharing to go up the food chain, because you're not 5 days a week in the company, so you might not be recognized by everyone. So how can a company make sure that yes, we are going to promote this, but yes, we're going to promote this 100%, meaning that anyone full-time or job sharing mode can both achieve management, VP level, CXO level as well?
Yes, that is a very interesting question and very important one. So, well, job sharing is just one part of the puzzle, right? It has to fit in all different sorts of career development programs, or some companies call it talent management programs. It has to fit in terms of, it might also be only one part of this career development. And when you job share, for example, you have somebody who shares a job with you and you both work 60%, right? So you might invest either, if you have enough free time, in your further development, or in studies or courses or whatever program is there, a mentoring program, coaching programs that your company should offer you. So this is what I meant with the part of the puzzle, right? There has to be this whole system, or this whole, not only process, but as I said, programs in place that enable you to say, yes, I'm sharing a job on this level, in this position, but my goal is to do this or that. And the companies agree with that, of course. So it's also part of not only performance management or evaluations, but it's also part of career planning and career development, right? And then it has to be discussed, right? As said, either you are willing to volunteer your free time on doing that, or it is part of your 60% job, right? And there is a thing, as you all know, there is the thing like that we call learning on the job, right? So that means you are given more responsibilities and more tasks and more projects to work on, where you can actually learn for your future, right? For your future role. And that can be also combined with this theoretical part of studies that I mentioned. Or there can be a system like, as I actually mentioned, not only intergenerational, but let's say senior and junior level in job sharing, for example, where you actually not necessarily share the same job, but you actually can do a combination of job splitting. For example, I am a senior software engineer, right? And I do it with my 50% of my time, for example, in a Scrum team, which is also very important to say, because only by yourself with 50% might also not suffice. And then with the rest of this 10%, you are working together with, let's say, your line manager, who is a leader or team lead. And then you get tasks that are similar to his or her tasks, you know. And on the other side, and there are many examples, today's leaders in IT, for example, they still also want to be technical, right? So they might invest 10 or 20% of their time in building up on their skills in whatever programming language or software framework it is, or architecture, right? And I would say it involves three sides. So it involves talents, or this job sharing couple. It involves the, let's say, project team or the organization, but at the end also involves HR, right? Like people who are really willing also to be adaptable and to create all these opportunities and also to do that long term.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I think by now we definitely understood that everyone needs to be adaptable, and we need to focus on driving our careers the way we like, and then hope that we will get enough of community support, organization support to get where we want to be. And I just wanted to touch base on the most exciting part, at least for me, in this call, which is the entrepreneurship part. because everybody today wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody is dreaming of, I will once make my own company. And although the idea is very nice and sounds super good, this is a very challenging path, especially in Switzerland, especially during these like challenging times, and pretty much at any point. And you are lucky to be one. So I was really hoping if we can get some of the learnings that you gathered on this way, some of the challenges, ups and downs that you believe were most interesting to share, and that can potentially also help someone that is thinking about doing the same.
Yes, very glad to do that. And first, I would say one of the main tips would be that it is actually okay to fail, right? Mm-hmm. Many people might think they, or as you say, would like to be entrepreneurs, but then they are actually afraid of failure. And this is what we still need to learn in Switzerland, to embrace failures, of course, to mitigate them and to avoid them. That is true. But if they happen, it is okay, right? So this failure culture, I would say not only for entrepreneurs, but also for corporates, can be improved and worked on. And this is my, what I mean by main tip is like, be aware that you will make failures, right? And then be ready to learn from them, right? And to gain this experience so that you actually, of course, avoid them in the future, right? And one of the other tips would be, of course, connect with other entrepreneurs. Find, and I actually honestly wouldn't agree that Switzerland is not that good country to be an entrepreneur. On the contrary, there are many opportunities even from Switzerland, like so to say the state, right? The public institutions are offering actually help with that, even free courses, etc., etc. So many people don't know that, by the way. I didn't know that, but yeah. Anyways, there are, and the whole startup ecosystem is really growing. It is thriving, and there are, as you know, some the main two universities, right? The ETH and EPFL, and they are really producing many spin-offs from university, many new startups. So connect with these people, right? Connect with these people who are already entrepreneurs or who failed 3 times, 5 times, 10 times before they succeeded. Sorry, learn from them, get inspired from them, and that will definitely help you, right? Be better or be faster, or as said, avoid those mistakes. Then what is also important to understand is that on your way, you will definitely have some ups and downs, right? You will have some days when you think, oh, you know, why am I actually doing this? Or these clients are not answering, or you need to go to pitch through the whole week, or you have to find your team members, or people are leaving your company, or your co-founders are leaving. So there are so many situations when something can go wrong or when you can be challenged. On the other side, those are very exciting moments, right? That shape you as an entrepreneur, that shapes you as a person. Because as I mentioned before, at the end, we don't even have this distinction between private and work life, right? Because what you do is what you are, and how you react in those situations as an entrepreneur, how you deal with challenges, how you solve problems, helps you be a better person, be a better mother, be a better father, or sister, etc., right? And this is very important. This is what people should really embrace. And then they actually say that you need a lot of courage to start your startup or to start your business. And that is definitely true. that is maybe what you meant, Nina, I suppose, with Switzerland, right? As we also discussed, we are cushioned here, right? It is one of the countries with the highest standard on the whole world and globally. So it is risky, right? It is risky to say, I'm investing my time for free until I get the first income, or until I get a first client, or until my startup gets investment, etc., etc., versus having a very well-paid job at a corporation or whatever company. So, and I would say this is also a bit of mindset, but it takes a lot of courage to make this decision to say, I'm doing it. And last but not least, I'm very happy to always see young people like you ladies, or even younger, people who are 18, straight from a gymnasium, or even through their secondary school, starting their ventures and then learning from that. So I am actually very optimistic globally, but also about Switzerland, that the new generations will be even more entrepreneurial.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah, this is amazing. It's all about adaptability, which is how we started our conversation. And unfortunately, we have been here for an hour, so we can't keep going. So I think it's the best way to close the conversation, again, with adaptability and how important it is for you to succeed anywhere, and especially as an entrepreneur. Nonetheless, I think after we wrap up, it would be great if you could share a little bit of some resources that you find will be useful for anyone else who had heard us and is keen to venture in the startup lifestyle. I think that will be very useful to where to look, what trainings they can attend, what services government provides to them. But yes, I just want to thank you, Maja, again so much for this 60 minutes. It was amazing conversation. I'm looking at job sharing in a very different perspective than I looked at before we had this conversation. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and I really hope that your company succeeds. And and anyone who's listening to us and is keen to venture in this job sharing mode, feel free to follow Maja and see what she's doing in her company, because it is worth looking at. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carolina and Nina. It was a real pleasure. I really enjoyed this full hour. As you can see, I'm very passionate about these many different topics, right? So yes, please look up myself at LinkedIn or social media and reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm here for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. It was very impressive, like, to listen to your story. And just to close it off, I really think that all of the ups and downs really made you adapt and actually made you there where you are today. And that's awesome to see. So happy to connect next time. Maybe we'll have much more things to talk about. And by that time, we wish you best of luck.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.